Oh, we're so excited you're here. This is great. We love these Cooking Methods 101. This is like just a fun time for us to hang out and cook with all of you. So we are so excited. And of course, we love food and nutrition. So another reason to celebrate with National Nutrition Month. And we've got a great theme that Aubrey will talk about because the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics gives us a theme to really focus on each March. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But we'll continue to let members in, but we're so excited that you are here for this month's virtual hangout. So I'll start by just introducing myself as we wait for a few more people to come in, and then we'll introduce our dietitian team. I'll give some teasers about what we have coming up throughout the next couple of weeks in March. So a lot to look forward to. So my name is Erin Pellegrin. I'm our Senior Director of Culinary Nutrition and Education. I am just honored to be working alongside the amazing dietitians that make up our culinary nutrition team tonight, Michelle DeCristofaro, Aubrey Red, and Catherine Romero. So we'll all be working with lentils this evening. So today's virtual hangout, like I said, is another one of our Cooking Methods 101 for National Nutrition Month. So all month long, our team will be coming at you with different nutrition segments and some fun recipes. And this is a great way to start off the month. Our theme for this year is Food Connects Us. So the thought is how ingredients and recipes and types of cuisine can bring us all together. The memories, the experiences that we share, this is literally what connects us. So that is sort of the theme for the main ingredient of lentils that we are using tonight. I want to kick off our segment because we are so excited to get cooking this evening. And so first, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Aubrey Red, to share a little bit about National Nutrition Month, the theme of Food Connects Us, and what you can look forward to from our entire team throughout the month of March. So Aubrey, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Erin. And you may see that I'm not there, but I will be in frame in just 1 second. Hello, everybody. So March, as Erin said, is National Nutrition Month. And every year during the month of March, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics highlights the work that registered dietitians do. I wanted to take a second to highlight that to all of you because I know that there's a lot of words thrown around, right? Dietitian, nutritionist, and what does what mean? A registered dietitian is somebody who has gone through a bachelor's and potentially a master's degree in nutrition, has gone through 1,200 hours of supervised practice, which is about a year of supervised practice, takes national board credentialing exams, is licensed in their specific state, and completes 75 hours of continuing education every cycle. So there's a lot that goes into being a registered dietitian. So every month during the month of March, we celebrate how nutrition can empower us. And this year, the theme is Food Connects Us, which I love because I feel so passionate about really continuing to incorporate cultural foods, favorite foods, things that you love into your day-to-day. I think there's a big misconception that cultural foods have to be inherently unhealthy, which is not the case at all, which is why we're so excited for tonight's virtual hangout because we are showcasing lentils, a food staple that is across so many cultures, but also to highlight different cultural preparations of lentils. So I will be starting out with an Ethiopian misir wat, which is a red lentil stew. Before I dive into that Ethiopian stew, I also wanted to highlight just a little bit about what you can expect from us education-wise for the month of March outside of our live education events that we have. We do have coming up on Friday, we will be launching all of our staff's favorite recipes. So I pooled our staff for family recipes, cultural favorites, things that they love to have, and we are sharing them with you, our community. So check out on our blog for all of those recipes to come to you on Friday. Additionally, this Friday starts our Dear Dietitian series. So every Friday during the month of March at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be going live on Instagram to answer your questions. Questions ranging from protein intake to sugars to vegan diets. You can actually submit your own questions by visiting our website or going to our Instagram. We have the link in our bio to submit your questions, but we will be answering them live on Instagram for you every single Friday. Outside of all of that, I just wanted to highlight how robust we have of a nutrition education department and all of the nutrition education on our nutrition hub. If you visit uniteforher.org/nutrition, you'll find education resources like recipes, grocery shopping guides, grocery lists, daily dose, which is our kind of daily tips for healthful living. You'll find nutrient guides for different nutrients like potassium and vitamin D. You'll find treatment guides for different treatments like surgery, chemotherapy, radiation. You'll find our comprehensive nutrition side effect guide, which is over 60 pages talking about all of these different nutrition related side effects we can impact. You'll find frequently asked questions, Back to Basics, which is our video series, which we go over kitchen tips. We have Food for Thought talking about different bits of food. I could go on, but needless to say, we have so much education available in our nutrition hub. And I just love to highlight it because I think it is a resource that is constantly out there, and we want to make sure you're utilizing it. So all of these recipes from tonight will be in the Nutrition Hub on our blog. I believe I saw Erin shared that in the chat as well, which is wonderful. So with that, I will go into my Ethiopian Misir Wat. So I'm very excited. This was my first time making this recipe, and let me tell you, it's delicious. It's got a little bit of a kick, a little bit of a spice to it, but you can certainly tame it if that's not your style. So I have a big pan on my stove. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it to medium heat and let that heat up quickly. Now, what I'm first going to cook are some onions. I did pre-chop these onions. Thankfully, I did because this was the strongest onion I've ever chopped in my life. I was weeping while I was cutting this onion. Even standing here right now, I feel a little bit tearful. So this was a very strong onion. So we're going to cook our onion first once our pan heats up. The Misir Wat is an Ethiopian red lentil stew that has a really strong base of tomato, onion, and garlic. And then it's seasoned with a traditional Ethiopian seasoning called berbere. This has a little bit of chili in it, a little bit of paprika. It's got a little bit of smoke, a little bit of spice, but also a little bit of sweet. You could also just substitute this with your own seasoning blend. You could do paprika, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of cayenne, maybe even a little bit of honey or maple syrup, for example. All right, so I'm going to check on our pan. It's pretty hot. So I'm going to put in about a tablespoon of olive oil. If you're looking at the recipe, I am making a half of a recipe just because it makes a whole bunch. So if you hear me saying numbers that are a little bit different, it's because I'm halving the recipe. So I'm going to put in these onions. And I just want to cook them until they cook down a little bit and are translucent, which will take about 4 to 6 minutes at medium heat. And I always say while cooking, so sorry if you've been on a cooking class with me before, because you definitely heard me say this, but I think it's really important to always be flexible. I say 4 to 6 minutes, but your pan might get really hot and it might take 2 or 3 minutes, or your pan might not be super hot when you put them in and it might take a little bit longer. So just be flexible. All right, now I'm going to chop up 2 cloves of garlic, nice and small. These are going to give it a nice kind of aromatic fragrance. So I just crushed them to make it easier to peel the skin off. And then I took off the ends of the garlic. I'm just going to chop it into nice thin strips. And then I'm just going to take my knife and I'm just going to kind of mince it up. I don't mind if some pieces are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. I love garlic, so I could probably put 8 cloves of garlic in this and still enjoy it. All right, beautiful. And I have a little piece that didn't get chopped up. There we go. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check on my onions just because I certainly do not want them to burn They can brown a little bit, but I don't want them to get too hot in the pan. So I just want to give them a little mix. Some of them are starting to brown, which is perfect. All right, awesome. Now, our recipe also calls for 1 tomato. So since it's a half of a recipe, I'm going to do half of a tomato. I actually have these cute little cherry tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 4. There is no science behind that. I just have decided that 4 is about half of a tomato in size. And I'm just going to take them and we're going to put them in with the garlic. So I don't mind if they intermix on my cutting board a little bit. I'm kind of doing the same thing I did with my garlic. I'm taking it and I'm slicing it. And then I'm just going to kind of give it a rough chop because this is all going to mix together in a very stew-like consistency. So we don't need to have all specific pieces and sizes like we would if we're roasting, where we do try to have similar sized items for even cooking. All right, perfect. And I don't mind all the seeds in here. I love the little bit of juiciness from the inside. Let me check on these onions. Beautiful. All right, I would say my onions are just about ready. So what I'm going to put in here with my onions, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some tomato paste. So I'm going to put about a tablespoon of tomato paste, and I'm going to put about half of a tablespoon of the Burberry spice. We will add a little bit more a little later on, but to start, we're just going to add half. If you've never tried it before, I would try a little bit in maybe a different dish or just kind of on top of something. See how you like it. Give it a good smell. That can help you determine if you'll want to put more, less, kind of how much you'll want to put in there. All right, so then I'm going to do a tablespoon of tomato paste. And then I'm going to put the garlic and onion in with it as well. I found this tomato paste at my grocery store. That's a squeezy tube. Let me tell you, life-changing, because I usually get the can, I need 1 tablespoon, I don't end up using all of it, and then it kind of just goes to waste. So that made a big difference for me from a convenience perspective. All right, putting in the garlic and the tomato. And I'm just going to give it a little mix. You just want to cook it for just a minute until it gets nice and fragrant. Beautiful. All right. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add my lentils and some broth. So I have about 1¼ cup of broth. And then for my lentils, I want about a half of a cup of lentils. So I have here a 1 cup measure, but it's got some nice lines on the inside to support. So I'm going to give these a little bit of a rinse. Helps to take off some of the bitterness that you can sometimes get with lentils. Just a little rinse. All right. And I'm going to pop those right in my pan. And then I'm going to put the broth right in and give it a really good stir. Break up those lentils because they tend to stick together after you rinse them. So I just want to make sure that they're all broken apart. I'm going to turn my heat up to high. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're just going to reduce it to a simmer. And then we're going to let it simmer for, the recipe says about 30 to 40 minutes. If you're doing a half recipe, it takes much less time than that. Red lentils do tend to cook a little bit faster than green or brown lentils because they are split. So they tend to cook a bit quicker. I would say keep an eye on it every 5 to 10 minutes. See how everything has absorbed. See if it looks like it needs more liquid, if it looks like it's fully absorbed, and check for tenderness. All right, so it looks like we are at a nice boil here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat down to low. I'm going to set a timer for myself so I don't forget to come back and look at this. But since it does take so long to simmer, as with our lentils, they do take typically 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. What we all did is we all made some of our recipes in advance so that you could see it. So this is our Ethiopian Misir Wat. I put a little bit of parsley on top, and I have it also with some bread. So you can serve it with flatbread. You could serve it with really any type of like bread or grain, and it would be a great, delicious meal. So that is our Monsieur Watt. And I believe Erin is next. Erin, can you confirm for me, do we have Sue on, or is it, will I be
I'm
turning it
here.
over
I
to
got
you?
you. Nope, I
Awesome.
got
All
you.
right. Well, then
Ready?
let me pass this over to Erin. I
Yep.
think you need a spoon for your recipe, right?
Got it. Got it. Thank you.
Perfect.
Need it. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank
Love
you.
that. Wonderful. Hi. Okay. I love that. I love red lentils. And Sue, I was laughing at your comment because I totally have my onion goggles, which I used when I cut up my onion today because my onions as well were so strong. I too was like tearing in my kitchen and it was a mess. So anyway, yes, get yourself some onion goggles. They're worth their weight in gold. Okay, so I am really excited because I am using brown lentils today, and I am making a traditional Lebanese dish called muhadara. And so it's this type of dish is what is commonly referred to as peasant food because it uses super simple ingredients. It's very quick to throw together. And frankly, it's just using some basics. So the versatility is really great. And when I was testing this recipe, I realized like this is the perfect side dish. You could add this to anything. And it takes literally no time at all. So the first thing we're going to do is fry some onions. So the onions that made me cry today, I just used 2 Spanish onions. A white onion would be fine. And I am going to bring my heat up a little bit. So to fry my onions, I'm using a larger pan with a high side so that the oil doesn't really splatter everywhere. We want to keep it on medium high heat. And I'm using some olive oil. Avocado oil would be fine as well. You want to make sure with olive oil you're not going too high. We're definitely not cooking on high heat. We don't want that to burn. So as my oil is getting hot, the way I prepared my onions, I just sliced them. So I cut my onion in half and we just thinly slice them. This will be the topping to our muhadara. So once I can see that this is starting to shimmer a little bit, I'm just going to drop my onions in. Okay. I do have my vent on. You can hear the sizzle. We're not adding any seasoning. We're not adding anything to this right now. Super, super simple. And I will just let my onions start to brown, start to get a little bit crispy. And then nearby, you want to make sure that you have a plate with some paper towels on it so that when we take our onions out of the pan, we let that excess oil sort of drain off. We're going to add a little bit of salt at the end for flavor, and that will be our topping to our dish. So really simple. You'll see me just periodically going back and moving my onions around. If you feel like your pan is getting a little bit too hot, just turn that down a little bit. You can also take your pan off of heat just to let it cool for a second if you feel like it's creating a little bit of smoke or just getting too hot on your stovetop. So you don't want to certainly walk away from your pan, but periodically I'll be going back and forth. So that is step number 1 of this super easy Lebanese dish. Step number 2, as Aubrey said, we did a little bit of prep ahead of time. So I did prepare mine and I have for step 1 going already. So I think the trend that you'll see for a lot of our recipes tonight is the quantity that it yields is quite large. So I too cut this recipe in half. So I made half earlier. And so all of the quantities that you're seeing, 1 cup of lentils, half a cup of rice is what I'm working with currently. So I'm using for this a medium saucepan. If you're making the full dish, definitely use a large saucepan. And in here, I have cooking 1 cup of my brown lentils, which are a really cheap grocery store pantry staple. They cook up really quick. The difference with using things like brown and green lentils that Michelle will be using are they cook down, but they do hold a little bit of their texture, which is why they're so good for dishes like this that are great for sides, things like in a lentil soup that Michelle is making, because while they soften, they still hold it together. Whereas red and yellow lentils that Catherine and Aubrey are using, they really break down nicely, which is good for like dals and curry dishes and the Ethiopian dish that Aubrey made. So just a little bit of texture. I'll show you what step one looks for. So in my medium pan here, I had 2.5 to 3 cups of a little bit of vegetable stock and some water, and 1 cup of my brown lentils rinsed. I brought them up to a boil. And then once it was at a boil, I put a lid on it and I let it simmer for 15 minutes. Let me show you what this looks like now. So what we're looking for is there still will be a little bit of liquid in the bottom, but my lentils have started to cook nicely, okay? From here, turn my flame back on. From here, we're going to add our rice. So I'm using half a cup of rice that I have sitting in some cold water just to reduce some of that excess starch. So I let it sit for, honestly, 15, 20 minutes. We'll drain this rice. Let me just give this a little rinse. And I'm using traditionally a white basmati rice. So once that's all drained, you could certainly try a brown rice, a whole grain rice. You may need to do 2 things. 1, you may need to cook it a little bit longer. 2, you may need to add a little bit more liquid to it. So I would just eyeball it, but this is truly a super forgiving recipe. So our rice goes in. And you may think, well, there wasn't a lot of liquid in that pan. Like, how's that rice going to cook? So number 1, because of the soaking, that kind of helps the process a little bit, but we don't need a ton. So we'll mix in our rice. I'm using a little bit of vegetable stock just to give some foundational flavor. You can certainly use just regular water and that would be fine. Great. And then from here, my lid goes back on tight. So you want to make sure you're using a pan with a lid. 15 minutes. And I'm going to turn that down to low. 15 minutes. We're going to let that cook. The rice will cook fully. We'll take it off from heat, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then we'll add a little bit of cumin and we'll fluff it with a fork. All right. And at that point, that's done. And my onions are looking really great. I'm going to give them another minute. We'll pull them out and I'll show you what they look like. So at the end of this, like I said, this uses really simple ingredients. We've got water or stock, onion, a little bit of cooking oil, our lentils, some cumin, and a little bit of salt to taste, and that's it. So this is really a wonderfully easy and versatile dish that you can make. So now that our onions have quickly fried up, let's move them over to, I have a plate here, and I'll show you what these look like. So let me come around. This is a better angle. All right, so you can see we have a nice little brown here. So we'll take these and we'll put them on our plate. Actually, let's move this over. With a paper towel. I did prep some onions ahead of time, again, just in case. This adds a really lovely crispy topping. So we're playing with textures here. And just let these spread out. I'm adding a little bit of some coarse salt while they're still warm, just to add some flavor. And then once everything is done, like I said, we're going to add to the full recipe 2 teaspoons of cumin, to the half recipe 1 teaspoon. We fluff our lentil and rice mixture with a fork. And this is what it looks like. A beautiful, simple, super tasty dish. And then when you're ready to serve it, we'll take some of these really crispy, delicious, crunchy bits that we'll just sort of place right on top as our little garnish. Super simple. I think even working with shallots, some fried shallots would be super delicious. All right, let's get that out of the way. So Here is your Lebanese muhadara. You could certainly finish this. I think really traditionally might be nice with some fresh parsley or cilantro if you're looking for a little bit of green. But this is a super tasty, simple, literally comes together in no time side dish that you're getting a ton of fiber, a ton of protein, minerals like iron, healthy carbohydrates. So it's really, really packed. It's great for meal prepping as well. So you can use this for several lunches throughout the day. So super simple, versatile, tasty Lebanese dish using brown lentils. So with that, let me grab my spoon because I think we have Catherine that is next cooking up her dish. So Catherine, I mean, I'm going to try to reach real far to get this over to you.
All right, hold on. I think I got it.
You got it?
Yes, I got it.
All right.
Oh,
there you go.
Thank you. I'll definitely need that, Erin. Thanks. All right. So for today's lentils, I will be doing yellow dal lentils. Now, yellow dal lentils are typical staple lentils in any Indian household. And interestingly enough, in India, dal actually refers to the lentil and the plate by itself. So you can just say dal and everyone will know exactly what you mean by that. Now, that being said, yellow lentils are very hard to find. So I did a little bit of research and it turns out that red lentils will be interchangeable. And that is because red lentils are similar to yellow in the sense that they are hollowed and split, which just means that they take the little cover of it and they literally split the lentils. So it cooks faster and they become very, very soft, very, very creamy, similar to Aubrey's red lentils. Now, I have a lot of spices here. As you all know, Indian cuisine includes a lot of spices. So I'm very excited. I put them in this nice plate because I love seeing the colors. So I will also be using some turmeric, some coriander, and some curcumin. So what they all have in common is that they have digestive properties, they have anti-inflammatory properties, and they are very tasty. So on top of that, I also have here some ginger, some fresh ginger. I have some garlic, some onions, and I have cilantro just to top it off a little bit. And right here, I also have some, I think it's about a tablespoon. I also did same as everyone else. I just cut everything in half because with lentils, there's just, we'll be eating lentils for 2 weeks if we did our test recipes plus this time. So to keep it within what we can eat in a week of lentils, we just split everything in half. So I have a tablespoon here of hot olive oil. And I will be adding, this is about 1 onion already diced up. And it's funny how everyone also did the same because they tend to be strong. In my case, I cry anyways. I feel like I've even cried mincing garlic. So you'll never see me dice an onion in camera. And I'm waiting to see if Michelle would do that because Michelle's very brave. So I will be tossing this in here and sauteing it a little bit. This is a very, very easy recipe. So everything is just going to go into the same pan. So now I'm going to do my garlic and my ginger. And then I have just this tool for garlic. The recipe called for like 9 cloves. So to save some time, I will be adding these in here so that they are very fresh. And with garlic, and same as with any of the herbs, the more that you mince, the more that you crush, the more flavorful that they are, the more that the flavor comes out. All of the juice kind of makes it taste a little bit more strong. So I'm a fan of garlic, so I typically add even a little bit more. So even though I'm splitting it in half and the recipe called for 8, I still did 8. So this is gonna have a big flavor with garlic. So this is already pretty warm. And then for this recipe, we're gonna add everything in, like all of the seasonings with the pot heat hot so that all of the spices are going to start releasing all of their natural oils and all of the aromas. And this is going to be a key part for making these lentils because the flavor is definitely all coming from this. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. So all of the onions and the ginger is fully covered with all of the seasoning. If you have a sensitive stomach or you don't like spice that much, I would definitely still encourage you to try and then maybe just cut the serving in half for the spices, maybe like a teaspoon. It'll still be enough for you to feel. Perfect. So this is seasoning up, but as you can see, all of it is just fully covered. You don't see any of the transparent onions in here. It looks all just browned up, covered up with all of those nice spices. All right, so I'm gonna let that heat up a little bit in there. And then in the meantime, I'm just going to chop off a little bit of the cilantro that we'll be using to serve. So I already made a batch and I also made some white rice to go with it. So for these lentils, and honestly any lentil, you can use the same spices. I personally use the same turmeric for green lentils. So I feel like all of these recipes that we're doing are pretty interchangeable with any type of lentil or even any type of bean. You can play around with all the seasonings. They're very hard to mess up. So you can just get creative with it and play around. Awesome. So this is pretty much heated up. So now I'm going to add the red lentils. These are already rinsed and dry. So I'm going to add them in here, mix them around a little bit, just to get all of those spices and all that flavor before I add in the vegetable stock. Similar as with Erin's recipe, you can also do this with water because the flavor from it is already so strong. If you want to keep it a little bit more simple, feel free to use water instead of any stock. So all of that pretty much covered. Maybe I can take a little peek. And they will turn out a little bit yellowish because of the turmeric. And then nutrition-wise, between the red and the yellow, there really isn't that big of a difference. The yellow ones just have a little bit more iron. So if you find the red ones, you definitely go for it. All right, so I have this, and then now I'm just going to add some of the vegetable stock. I actually have chicken stock. So for 1 cup of the red lentils, I will be doing 1.5 cups of liquid. Once that is in there, I'll just move it around a little bit to break it up. And then after that, I will cover and let it come to a boil. Once it boils, I will just cover it and let it, again, simmer for about 20 to 30 minutes. Keep an eye on it. If you feel like it's becoming too dry, add a little bit more liquid, but I will show you exactly what it should look like. And let me just show you guys. So this is, I just love all the seasoning and all the colors. So it's already yellow, even though none of the liquid is, it's all the seasoning. It's all about the seasoning. All right, so I will let that come to a boil and then I will cover it. Let me cover it a little bit and turn it up. However, like I said, I already have some here ready. No need to wait for it. So I have just a little bit of jasmine rice, and then here are the lentils. So I'm going to move them around so that you guys can see. They are very, very soft. They crumble very quickly. So I'm going to top this off. with my rice. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of this cilantro to give it even more brightness and more color. All right, and there you go. This is what yellow dal or red dal lentils would look like, and they are delicious. And then now we are going to see if Michelle is actually going to chop her onions. Please, Michelle, do it for all of us. And I'm pretty sure you're going to need this as well.
I am. I'm doing soup. Yes.
All right. So I'm going to hand it to you. Let me know whenever you have it.
I got it. Thank
Awesome.
you. So thank you, Catherine. So two things. Yes, I will be chopping my onion. I don't know, maybe it's where I buy my onions. I don't have that much trouble. However, we'll see. And also, I did not cut my recipe in half. My husband and I will polish this off, even though I made it yesterday. So, we can always freeze it if we're not getting through it in the next couple of days. But so as my colleagues mentioned, I will be doing green lentils. So specifically, this is called an herb French lentil soup. So why is it French? The lentils that I'm using, they are called, thanks Aubrey for giving me a French word, les puits. And if you can say that properly, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can Google how to say it. That's what I did. But Les Puits is a region in France. So it's just one of the variety of the green lentils. They're about a third of the size of a regular brown or green lentil. So I don't know if you can really see how tiny they are, but they really are. They really are. They'll cook up a little bit quicker, but they still are firm and dense like the brown lentils. So it won't be like Aubrey and Catherine's lentils. They won't be as soft. They won't cook as quickly. They do have a peppery, nutty, and earthy flavor. They describe it, we usually hear al dente in reference to pasta, but lentils can be al dente as well. So that means that it'll still be firm when you bite into them. However, you want to still make sure that you do cook them, because if you're practically eating a raw lentil, that might cause some GI discomfort. So, make sure that they are cooked. I always say with lentils, same thing as grains. If you feel most of your liquid has absorbed, but the lentil is still too hard, it's not al dente, it's just not cooked, add more broth or more water. I recommend water because you have so many flavorings into your dish that you don't need to use extra broth. But go ahead and play around with it until all the liquid has been absorbed and your lentils are at the perfect texture. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have here a carrot and onion and celery. So what I'm going to do is dice these. So I like to dice them small because they cook quicker. So, and make sure you're doing the same with each, because if you have some that are larger, some that are smaller, then the cooking will not be even. So it won't cook evenly. So I'll start with my carrot first. Now, how I do it, I scrubbed and peeled my carrot. You do not need to peel your carrot if you do not want to, but I cut it in half and I put the flat side down. I then, depending on the size of your carrot, I cut it 2 more times. So I have 3 sticks like this. I put them together and just dice them, and this cues Bella. Once she hears vegetables being chopped, she'll run over. So I'll just do that with one more. This one's kind of thin, so I'm just going to just slice it in half. All right. Here I have my celery. So again, depending on the size, I will cut this into thirds because it is pretty large. And then I turn them to the side and same thing. Just a quick dice. And I like to, for this dish, I like to not chop into larger pieces because the lentils are smaller. So I think it cooks up nicely instead of having these big chunks of vegetables and then these little tiny lentils. All right, guys, here I go with the onion. So to dice an onion, so you picture a whole onion like this. I cut it lengthwise, and then I cut the top off, and I leave the root on, which is the little furry end, looks like it has hair. And then I'm taking the point of my knife. I don't go to the top where the root is, and I just make these little slices. Just be very careful as you go around because the knife is getting close to your fingers. And then if you had a really large onion, you can slice it in half this way, but since this is tiny, there we go. Makeup still intact, I hope. All right. I don't mean to brag, right? One of these days it'll get me. It'll get me. Okay. So here I have my diced carrots, celery, onion. I have a Dutch pot over here warmed on medium high. You do not have to use something this large. You can use a saucepan if you are cutting the recipe in half. Something that's a little different, instead of me tossing these in the Dutch oven and sauteing it until they break down a little bit, you can also sweat the vegetables. So what that means is you warm it up with your olive oil, you toss in your vegetables, and then you turn it down to low, put the lid on, and let it sweat for about 15 to 20 minutes. I love this method because it avoids browning. Sometimes we don't realize how hot the pot is, and it starts to brown on the edges. So I don't know if you can really tell a difference, but these are vegetables that have sweat. So they're still one beautiful color. They're glistening a little bit. The onions are nice and translucent. When I make tomato sauce, that's what I do. I chop my onion and garlic and I sweat the vegetables. So I did that before class because I don't have 15 to 20 minutes to let them sweat. So I have the rest of, actually, toss these back in here. And I'll turn the pot back on. All right. So, spoiler alert, in the near future, the dietitians will be talking about our favorite kitchen utensils, and that is mine. So a little more information to come. Make sure you check that out because we all have our favorites in the kitchen, right? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is dice my potato. I have here my potato sitting in water. So if you want to prep your potatoes early, I would put them in water so they don't brown or get that reddish color. So if you were to chop potatoes the night before, just dump them in a bowl with water and they will come out looking beautiful. Earlier today, I actually forgot. I started chopping the potato and then I went upstairs and it was red. So I put it in water for a little bit and now it's nice and white. So let me drain these and I'll show you how I like to dice a potato. There is more than one way to dice a potato, right? But I'll show you how I like. Okay, so these are back up to where they should be as far as heat. So I'm going to add 8 cups of vegetable stock. And if you don't want to do 8 cups of vegetable stock, maybe do 4 cups and then use water for the rest. You could probably use just water. With lentils, I find You do have to doctor them up a little bit. So if you are using water, maybe add a bay leaf, maybe add some more herbs and spices. We are going to be using herbs for this dish, but you might need a little more. Okay, so I will also add my lentils. Again, make sure you rinse your lentils, pick out any stones or anything else that's lingering in there. And I will also add my garlic at this point. So I did turn this up to boil. I want to bring the soup up to a boil. Toss my garlic in. However you would like to prep your garlic is fine. You can mince it. What I'm using tonight is my microplane. So you can use this for ginger, garlic, citrus if you're zesting it. And I am just going to mince this right into the pot. When I get to the end, when I feel like I'm getting too close to my fingers, I'll just toss the rest in. And yes, I did put way more garlic than the recipe called for. I probably doubled it. So give this a good stir. Again, I have my my onions, celery, carrot. I have the broth, the lentils. I added some of the potatoes. I did want to show you how I dice the potato. I don't peel the potato. You can, of course. Most of the fiber is in the peel, so I keep it on. So the potato was whole. I sliced it lengthwise. And then I will cut it lengthwise again. And then just thinly slice. Again, always be careful as you get closer to your fingers. And I take this round end here, and this is all I do. I will also stack them so it goes a little bit quicker. All right, so that's good enough for now. Add these right in. Last but not least, the herbs. Now, the other recipes were, they included spices. This recipe just includes herbs. If you want to add spices, that's fine. If you don't want to use fresh herbs, I will be using rosemary and thyme. You can get the dried versions. But the interesting thing is we're just going to throw the 2 sprigs of rosemary right into the pot. So we're not going to chop it up. Here, I have some thyme leaves, and the easiest way to remove the leaves from the stem is hold it with one finger and then use your other hand and just pull down and the leaves come off. Sometimes the stems are a little flimsy, so that won't work. So I usually just pull the leaves right off. You can leave the leaves as is, or you can give them a rough chop. It's amazing for this big pot of soup, how much flavor these herbs lend to the dish. All right, so once I have my herbs, or the thyme, I am going to chop it up just a little bit. Okay, so I have everything in. Again, I will bring this to a boil, and then I will simmer it for about a half hour. Again, as Aubrey said, it depends on what you're using, your cooking vessel that you are using. So simmer it. I just like to see if the potatoes are done, if the lentils are done. So I will show you the finished product. So the green lentils did turn a little brown, which is fine. And I love that you can see the carrot in there. You do need to remove the rosemary sprigs. Now, once the vegetables are nice and tender, it will look like a soup, meaning a lot of liquid. So two things that you can do. You can use an immersion blender or a blender and puree maybe a cup, half a cup, so you get that thickness. You don't want to puree the whole thing, but just a little bit to make the soup thicker. Or as you leave it out, it starts to thicken up a little bit. Overnight, it thickens up. So this was from last night. This was more of a soup. And once I pulled it out of the refrigerator, it was nice and thick. So there you have it. We still, oh, sorry, that was to me. So any questions, or I think I'm tossing it back to Aubrey. We'll go back to the beginning. Is that correct? Does it go back to you, Aubrey?
Really, we are pretty much done. I guess I would ask, does anybody have any questions? But we can also toss it back to the whole team if we want to just see everybody's finished products. I know I saw some of us, myself included, snacking on some of the finished products.
I did. I was watching. I'm very jealous.
Well, with that, you know, me making the whole batch. So Sue, if you're in the office Friday, Erin and I will, so we can have a lentil soup taste test, right? We'll blindfold you and you can see which one you like better.
We'll love it. I will look forward to it. I had a question about the lentils. So I didn't realize that some will hold their shape more than others. And I think it's the way that they're processed. So if you could just repeat that again, is it the red and the yellow end up holding their shape more, and the other ones end up really coming down to more of a mashed feel? Is that right?
Yeah, so red and yellow lentils are split, which means they're whole. So they actually get into this softer texture and they start to break down more when they are cooked for longer. That's why a lot of times in like lentil burgers and things like that, we usually opt for a red or a yellow lentil because of the way that they break down. Green, brown, black lentils typically aren't whole, so they hold up their shape a lot more during cooking and they stay a lot firmer, a lot more round in the cooking process. Well, you'll see with red and yellow, they kind of have a flat appearance to them.
Yeah, I always know when I'm at a restaurant, I'm thrilled when I get lentils, and I don't buy them. I don't know why, I just don't buy them. And it's such a good, obviously it cooks a lot, and so I will have that on Friday. So what a great thing for your budget, right? And even to just have them as a prep cook ahead of time. I just feel like we've learned a lot about different dishes, and the spices are good, and it's raining here in PA. So it just feels like such a comfort food. It was great. I loved it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Well, there's our dietitian team, our dynamic dietitian team. DDD, we'll have to do that. Oh, I like that. Dear dietitian, dynamic dietitian. Make sure you're utilizing everybody here. We really do have such a robust program with our nutrition team. And that's because nutrition is really the most used passport offering that we have, but rightfully so. We know that nutrition truly fuels us so many ways, physically and mentally, but it brings us a lot of joy. And I always have a lot of joy when I join you guys. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. I wish I had my shirt on today. Darn, next time. A couple reminders. So we have our virtual hangout coming up on Wednesday, March the 12th at 4 p.m. Mandy Soller, she's amazing. She's a senior cosmetic medical tattooist. She's going to be joining us and really helping us from the Solar Institute once again, understand how to get some expert tips and techniques on enhancing one's natural beauty, boosting confidence, and creating a look for each of us. And I am the volunteer. I volunteer my time. So I will be in the chair. She actually did my eyebrows, if anybody was interested in medical tattooing. I was interested for 10 years and could not pull the trigger, and I finally did. And I am thrilled. And it just, you know, you lose all that when you go through chemotherapy and cancer care. And I just would always have to paint on my eyebrows. So she is remarkable. And then her speaker series is Thursday, March the 13th. It's at 6 p.m. The Truth About Supplements and Cancer with Alicia Gould. She's a registered dietitian, LDN, oncology dietitian from Memorial Sloan Kettering. So again, someone that is really going to be able to help us answer a lot of questions that revolve around supplements. I mean, I'm sure the dietitian team gets it in every call, right? Thinking about how to utilize them. Is it for me? Is it something I should be investing in? So it's really important that we break that down, and we have an expert to do so. Well, you guys are a home run as always. You make it happen. Thank you so much for joining. We had over 60 people on, all about lentils. Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? There's so much interest there. Thank you for all you do. If you have any other questions, you know you can email us. Very easy. You have all of our team's emails, but of course, the easiest way is probably info@uniteforher.org. Easy to remember, and then you can get to any one of our dietitians, and we will make sure that we get back to you. All right. Anything else from the team?
I don't think so. No, thank you guys so much for hopping on. And make sure you check out all of our National Nutrition Month content, right? Our Her Speaker series, Dear Dietitian, our team's recipes coming out Friday. So we've got a lot coming your way.
I was going to say, tune into Instagram on Friday for Dear Dietitian. Watch all
10 a.m.
questions, hop on social. If you need a mid-morning break from work, join us at 10 a.m. on Friday.
I love it. I will be joining, eating my lentils, watching Aubrey.
We'll have a viewing party, Sue. We'll have a viewing party. It'll be great.
Viewing party. Absolutely. Now, are you going to bring Lily and Kiki? That's what I want to know.
Kiki will be there.
I won't be in on Friday.
Oh, right. You're going to be doing. Okay, you're live.
Sorry.
All right. Very good. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for joining us.